Welcome, returning Summit champion Todd Kaplan, VP of Marketing at Pepsi, and one of the masterminds behind one of this generation's most famous cultural brand alignments, the Super Bowl Pepsi halftime show. Todd, how you doing today? Good to have you back.
Doing well, and likewise, like you, man. Just hearing about all these yacht cruises and wine tasting.
Yeah,
I think we got the short end of the stick here.
No,
right now
we're just trying to stay warm.
Love to be in Santa Barbara right now.
Last time we talked about the big idea, the Pepsi halftime show, which is a massive undertaking. We're going to start this time by going much smaller into some of the niche efforts that are still culturally relevant. We're going to talk about what you guys call at Pepsi culture bombs, right? And those of you who don't believe it, we're going to actually show you that there are such things as Pepsi Cracker Jack flavored soda, there's Pepsi Rosé, there's even Pepsi PEEPs. And I want to just show the image of the Pepsi PEEPs here. This is one of the little product drops, what they call culture bombs that are going on from Pepsi. And it's part of this idea of using product marketing, product development as a kind of product marketing. But in this case, it has a specific strategy. So Todd, tell us how Pepsi PEEPs makes sense from a marketing perspective. Why do you do this and how do you do this?
First of all, it's delicious. I mean, the first marshmallow flavored cola, what's not to love about that? But just let me go back to a little bit of the strategy behind it. I promise we're not like mad scientists just doing crazy things. We do have a strategy around all this. And so taking 10 steps back, right? Pepsi's a brand that, just where we're coming into this equation. We have mass awareness. So, just our problem to solve is this idea of brand relevance and driving a deeper connection with consumers. We're in a very low involvement category that, like many of you, a lot of it is just being top of mind, how you connect with consumers, and a lot of those kind of things, developing a deeper emotional connection. And so we've built this strategy, really digging into this idea of cultural relevance as a brand. And, we have this approach that I call being culture in versus brand out as a marketer. And really what it starts from is a lot of us as marketers and disciplined marketers, we have a strategic objective to target X, do Y, communicate it, and just go reach them like this. And the method we try is we call it culture in, where we start with listening to the context of what's happening in culture around them and bring our brand point of view on top. And where those things connect, we often find a lot of these ideas. And so we've built this idea that I call a culture bomb with our teams. And basically the idea of cultural relevance, it's kind of a fat word. Like, what does that even really mean? What's a measure? And I think the most simple way of thinking about it is if you've done something that mattered, it'll take off organically in earned media and organically in social chatter and conversation and shareability. And a lot of this has started in, you look at an industry like the sneaker industry with product drops, the limited edition Travis Scott. I'm a sneakerhead myself, right? And they still have the bread and butter of their selling big business at Dick's Sporting Goods and all the places, Amazon, et cetera. But there's these kind of cultural moments and things. And so bringing some of that, starting from the cultural context in, we've been able over the years to build things like you said, Pepsi Rosé, where we partnered with Bravo. And if anyone watches Real Housewives and knows Lisa Vanderpump, who we partnered with to do that, and the role that Rosé plays kind of in that Real Housewives culture, we built a specially formulated version that was in a glass bottle that literally had a line wrapped around the corner and people waiting hours to try at BravoCon a couple of years ago. And we've done things like this from, like you said, Cracker Jack, Pepsi PEEPs, et cetera. And it's just a great, fun way for us to generate a lot of buzz and talk value.
And you don't, we should make clear, you can't go out and buy Pepsi PEEPs, can you?
Correct.
These are not actually products. Most of these, not all, but I mean, there are some that scale up. But in most of these cases, like a Pepsi Cracker Jack, a Pepsi Rosé, and a Pepsi PEEPs, these aren't things that anybody can go out and buy. You're actually developing products no consumer can get except through a special event.
It's this idea of developing something. We'll give them away online. Usually have some sort of action connected to them. That the consumers will need to do to get it. And it creates a lot of frenzy, a lot of interest and intrigue. And then when they get them, it is kind of a cherished thing. I know Pepsi PEEPs, which a lot of people call Pepsi, went for over $1,000 on eBay. I mean, this is the secondary sales and all that, and just generating kind of the interest in what I'll say is our R&D counterparts, listen, we have a range of innovation. We'll do large scale innovation. This year we launched Pepsi Mango as a permanent new product. We'll do LTOs like a lot of you as well. We've just launched Pepsi Soda Shop, which is black cherry and cream soda flavored Pepsi. Again, that's in a big scalable way sold at retail. And then we'll do these limited drops like Cracker Jack, PEEPs, all these kind of things to really, across the spectrum, generate a lot of, brand love. And by the way, as these things take off and we start to see the demand for some of these things, they could graduate to the next thing, and maybe it will be an LTO someday. So we're getting learnings throughout it as well, which has been really great.
What's the cultural insight though on the front end? Okay, I understand the rosé and the housewives. Where's Cracker Jack come from? Where does PEEPs come from?
Totally.
What insight? What research is telling you that we should try this? We should try a PEEPs flavored Pepsi.
Totally. So we always start all our projects back to this kind of culture forward way that we think about things. I always push the team to say it's really where these three truths intersect, and we look for cultural truths, consumer truths, and brand and product truths. And where those three things intersect and ideally have a fair degree of tension is where the best creative ideas typically start. And so again, culturally, if you think about the MLB playoffs, we're about to start, and a lot of buzz, and within, again, the baseball perspective, excitement around that. And there's this consumer truth around the nostalgia associated with the sport of baseball, and it's what my parents used to grow up watching and going to the ballpark and Cracker Jacks and all of that. And this product truth of our brand is endemic to this stadium experience, and people will have a Pepsi and Cracker Jack at the ballpark. And so to bring all those together with our brand point of view, which is around unapologetic enjoyment and how these super fans would really get so excited and wanting to really celebrate and say, I see you, let's do something fun for you. We created Pepsi Cracker Jack. I have one right here. It's Cracker Jack Pepsi. It's got a tattoo you can peel off the side, temporary tattoo, right? And it's like, and it literally, it's delicious. It tastes like Pepsi infused with Cracker Jacks, and it's awesome.
I just want to dig into some of the more traditional marketing things that go with this. So what's the media plan against things like this? What do you do? How do you plan against this and actually amplify this success?
So, and just to be clear, I know we're talking a lot about these. We have the full marketing mix that we have turned on at any given stage, right? So we'll have our hardworking, upper funnel, A&M kind of TV spots that are very like brick to forehead, top of mind awareness. We call it like taste and refresh, or it'll drive a situational salience around Pepsi with food, or things that we want to really reinforce that kind of keep it going. And then what we'll have is we'll plan these kind of cultural beats throughout the year. Some of these are, these culture bomb kind of product things. Some of them are fun pieces of creative where we just do something. We'll drop a new piece of equity driving creative around the NFL or around, certain subjects that really showcase our real brand point of view. And we'll do those things together. And so for these initiatives, typically we'll have some digital activation, usually it's on Twitter, TikTok, things like that, where we're really kind of promoting this and getting out. And a lot of it is frankly just earned. And these things have generated, PEEPs alone, that was on every late night tech show. Saturday Night Live did a spoof of it. All the morning shows, in terms of the reach and buzz and impressions is, it's in the billions, a lot of these things. So it's good.
Okay, so then what are the KPIs against these? Does each campaign have a specific kind of KPI to it, or do you sort of have a general set of KPIs that you apply to culture bombs?
Yeah, I think totally. I think it's, listen, there's a lot of these are around engagement, given what this is aimed to do with a kind of core loyal audience. Listen, like I said, we have key strategic targets and the things we're doing, like I said, to drive a lot of the more what I'd say lower funnel conversion kind of things. But a lot of these are really aimed at driving engagement, driving earned and social buzz and conversation, which will in turn drive top of mind awareness. Just you read about it in the news that day, you saw it, as well as to start to even seed and learn more about, even just from a product development point, what are flavors and things that consumers are interested in as well.
I want to dig into one. You mentioned the sneaker culture thing, and that interests me because I've spoken to people in that world, and one of the things that I noticed in previous interviews, especially with the CMO of Foot Locker, who, by the way, has released 250 products, separate new SKUs, just in the last quarter. It really talks to you about the scale of some of this. But one of the things that's really important there is that they're taking the sneaker culture, and I think you are taking a page from entertainment marketing, in that now we're starting to see marketers look more towards demand generation, then drop a product, advertise the crap out of it, and then try to generate demand. But instead, generate demand on the front end before release. So tell us a little bit about how you're doing that. You're sort of growing anticipatory demand for these culture bombs.
Yeah, I think there's this idea of listen, we're in a category, like I said, that people don't think about a lot. It's kind of it's there when they're hungry, when they're thirsty, when they're at a meal, when they're doing things, when they're stocking up in the grocery store. And so driving that top of mind awareness to actually be able to say, like, you know what, next week on Tuesday, the whatever Pepsi is coming out, if I'm somebody who's really that into whether it's the thing we're partnering with or into Pepsi or want to just try it out, I'm going to mark that on my calendar and really get into it. And you're seeing this idea of drop culture is a much bigger thing. I mean, even across CPG, I know, Oreo's done a lot of limited edition. I mean, a lot of brands and food and beverage products are doing stuff. You're even seeing a lot of these behaviors in the NFT space, as well as people are getting ready for the next minting and the next drop. And so there is something about that, gotta have it, I got one, type of culture that, if you do it in the right way as a brand, even a low involvement category like beverages, where we can really still connect the dots there with some really special fun things.
It's a real amazing evolution, because we're seeing consumer products, and as you said, sort of high demand, low consideration products like a lot of yours, adopting some of the marketing patterns of Hollywood movies and video games, of having these longer lead times where you're actually trying to build anticipation and build expectations within a target market, and then drop the product, and it's almost like release day activation, so that you're really going for that initial buzz and initial rush of interest.
Yeah, and it's even beyond this. We've done stuff even less even about a product drop, but even just back to this kind of idea of culture in type of things. On National Hamburger Day, we did a really fun, challenger activation, called Better with Pepsi, where we really took on the big three burger chains about driving, they all serve Coke, and we wanted people to say, hey, if you actually take a picture with a Big Mac and a Pepsi, we'll pay for the Pepsi. And we had this really fun execution. But again, moments in time in these days to actually drive a trending topic on Twitter, to have conversation about your brand in the ether, back to the cultural relevancy kind of myth. Did it, I always have this expression I use with my team of, if a tree falls in the woods, did it ever happen, kind of a thing, right? And it's that same concept of, I hear a lot of marketers and a lot of agencies will come back with recap decks that say, we took over Times Square, we had the biggest, program, whatever. And I'm like, I never freaking heard of it. Like, it didn't come across, no one texted me, it wasn't in my social feeds. And so it's kind of this idea, like the bullshit meter of it either happened or it didn't. And if it happened, cool, it was relevant. And you know those moments when your brand is in the ecosystem where people are talking, you get texts from friends, from relatives, not because you work at that company, but because your brand is actually connected on one point, and cut through the clutter.
Now, I'm sure they didn't all work.
Yeah.
What happens when things go wrong? Take us inside what goes wrong when one of these things doesn't work usually? Do you have a sense?
Yeah,
do you have a sense afterwards of what you did wrong when it didn't work?
Yeah, and I'd say wrong is like even the not the right word for this, because I think it's like some do better than others, I would say. But I would say we're very thoughtful in our approach, given it does take some time and resource to kind of pull all these things together, that we're not just like throwing stuff at a wall here just to see what would happen. But what I would say is the ones that take off more are usually, there's some sort of, again, it starts from how sharp those real cultural truths are around the interest level. Like I said, Peepsy, like Peeps is a thing. There's a whole subculture around Peeps. If you have it like around Easter, where people go into the stores, there's these people who make little dioramas of them online with the little bunnies and chicks and stuff. And so there's already a very high engagement super fan community for that kind of stuff. And that's where, again, to our viewpoint around celebrating people who have unapologetic enjoyment around whatever that is. And so these are people who are just super fans speaking to them as well as to the Pepsi fans, and the need for, some warmth around springtime coming out of a very dark winter, with COVID and everything. There's a lot that really brings it together.
So if I'm hearing you right, it's a lot of what defines success is getting it right at the point of inception,
I think
much
that's
as
right.
execution, because if it's done right, then the
Correct.
enthusiasm, if you have the right enthusiasm, that's going to drive it for you. It's less about execution than the original insight.
It's both though. And that's where I would say, I'll use PEEPs as the same example. That image that you just put up of the, I have the cans up here behind me, is what, like, the brightness of the colors, how we brought them all together. Again, we could have just thrown a logo together that said Pepsi X PEEPs and put it on a blue Pepsi can with a little peep in the corner. And I don't know, the fact that they're mini cans, there's other executions where we put them in an actual package with the PEEPs packaging with the little window that they poke through, in a collectible case. So, this is one of the Cracker Jack cases I have with me that we sent, and it comes in a collectible box, and inside there's 3 boxes of Cracker Jacks, and on this side is where the can comes in. And so it's just the thoughtfulness to the unboxing and the specialness of it from top, so there is execution that comes into it as well, but it's that whole package, the insight to execution, needing to thread the needle.
You really need to make sure that you're plugged into the vibe. You really understand what's appealing about this. And then play it through all of its.
That's it. If you're going to go delve into the deep subculture of whatever it is and say, I see you, I get you, you better damn well get it,
Right.
Or they'll eat you up. So
now this is a piece of a larger trend, and with Pepsi generally, that increasingly you're looking more like a media company.
Yeah.
You're starting to make moves, create content, but also make marketing moves that look and feel more like a media company than a traditional CPG, and at least certainly as an entertainment marketing company. And obviously, and tell us a little bit about how this is moving you away from, or at least complementing, traditional advertising as you see it. This idea of entertainment marketing.
Yeah, so entertainment marketing. Totally. I think, when it comes to us as Pepsi, back to, we don't have really an awareness issue. It's about that idea of relevance and connection. The whole presented by thing does not really work for us, right? Just to say, hey, so-and-so presented by Pepsi, like, that doesn't help us with anything. That's just slapping a logo and a billboard on something. And so if we've gone really deep into the content creation space this past year, where we've built programming that will help tell brand stories and narratives about the initiatives and types of things we want. So this past year, for example, we created 3 different TV shows that have aired on major networks. We created a show with Fox called Cherries Wild that was a primetime game show, 8 episodes built around our Pepsi Wild Cherry product, and the idea that the consumers of that product have this high degree of chance. They think they're going to win the lottery. They think they're going to be famous. And so we built a 3-story tall slot machine, had Jason Biggs as the host, and this idea of chance, and built a whole ecosystem around it, again, with our product organically in it, retail activation as well. We built a show with MTV called Match Me If You Can. That was a dating show that was really about this idea around Pepsi Mango, which we came out with, which was a surprisingly perfect match that people would say Pepsi and mango, that's kind of gross. Do I get it? But it's actually delicious, and how they complement each other, and so really just taking that premise to dating of, we took all the people who did not win all these other dating shows. So from a Netflix show, from The Bachelor, from, all these other ones, from, Big Brother, brought them all onto one show to actually spin the wheel and date each other. We've even done, long form documentaries. We built a thing that's actually up now on Showtime called The Show, which is chronicling the making of the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show. What goes into the craft, and how did the weekend get ready for it, and all the blood and sweat that goes into it. So there's a lot of different ways to tell brand narratives that are tied to product initiatives, tied to equity initiatives, that we're really, getting into that space in a big way with our media partners and on the production side to tell deeper stories.
Okay, let's take a look at a little sample of one of them, and then on the back end, let's dig into the marketing implications and the execution.
Sure.
So let's take a look at the let's go to the next image. Okay, let's go to the video.
Hello, PepsiCo. It's me, Jason Biggs, and I just wanted to say how excited I am to be hosting Cherries Wild. This is a huge bet for all of us. The Pepsi and Fox teams have been working really hard on this, and it is going to be great. Don't forget to watch Cherries Wild Sunday on Fox, and let's watch some people win big. Is this a $250,000 spin? Let's find out. Hold that handle.
It's about to get wild. Go big or go home.
It's television's biggest slot machine, and to make it pay, you better know pop trivia.
Justin Bieber's manager discovered him on YouTube. That's a fact. Lock it in. Beyonce's super fans, what are they called?
Where every right answer could earn some wild cash prizes.
That was a massive payday. $250,000. You're gonna cry. It's okay.
Jason Biggs hosts an all-new game show that's wild, crazy fun. Cherries Wild, this February on Fox.
Okay, so a couple of quick executional questions. Why an eight episode limited series? What was the thinking there, as opposed to
So the thought is, so there's the strategic, what we're trying to do business wise, which we wanted a big push around our wild cherry Pepsi, huge, fastly growing part of cola right now. We have an advantage product where we actually have the biggest cherry cola in the marketplace, and wanted to double down on that from a point of strength and really continue to grow that. And the core insight with those consumers, as I told you, this idea of chance and connecting all those dots and building this game show. As far as the format, we've thought 8 episode series would be great because it was actually out in market with this big retail push simultaneously, where we actually built an app that corresponded with the show, where you could play on your couch at home. You would scan the product at retail that would connect and actually get you more chances to spin and do all that kind of stuff, that really built a whole ecosystem around this to drive, if it's a one-off TV special or something like that, like it kind of comes and goes. We thought episodic was really great for this, and Fox was a great partner putting this on primetime, 8 o'clock on Sunday nights.
You also had you also had an individual interactive element. You had the app tied to it, right?
Correct, which was really cool. It was one of the first times you could actually play on your couch at home and actually win what they're winning on the screen in that moment. So it was a really fun kind of, full ecosystem that we built around it, for sure.
So again, what were the KPIs for this going in? What does success look like for a project like this?
Yeah, so a project like this, again, very clearly focused on our wild cherry product. So again, back to that, we were leveraging the bigness of this on air on Fox to help drive retail execution. So getting displays in store, getting frontline incentives. It was on our packaging, like I said, with the scan and the app and all that. I think 2 is the engagement and amount of time spent with our brands. So whether it's through our app that we built around this, through all of, that showed just bits and pieces of the show, we would wrap it around with other kind of content and experiences. We'd have our TV spots running around these moments as well on Fox that would bring it all together. And so really, at the end of the day, driving deeper affinity towards our cherry product, driving sales in the short term of our cherry product, and again, continuing to drive that equity in pop culture. It was all tied with pop culture trivia and things of that sort. So we thought it was really fun.
Did it work?
Yeah,
let's go to the bottom line. Did it increase sales, and did you learn anything about how efforts like this actually hit the bottom line? Yeah,
no, and it was just to be clear, new terrain for all of us, including the folks at Fox who were, this was from the people who created The Masked Singer and all these other shows, and we were deep partnership with them across the board, and the results were awesome. I mean, at the end of the day, when you think of the amount of time that people would spend, and we got a lot of repeat viewers coming back again and again, participating on the app, the engagement metrics were through the roof. And it's
what are engagement metrics for you? Go a little deeper, a little more detailed. Go into that word.
For this example was, the time spent with the app, the time they would spend actually participating and tweeting, social conversation, a lot of different things like that, engaging with our long form content around it. For sure, we're really, really strong. But as you look at, like I said, even the business metrics, cherry was one of the fastest growing things in the category, continuing to be a growth driver for us. We've and across our business as a whole this year on Pepsi. I mean, as you look at this whole kind of culture forward strategy, we've we've now gone 13 straight quarters of sales growth on this brand. And this is after decades of declining business sales in a category that I think, as you all know, has struggled from time to time. And so our total sales are up, our equity metrics, we've grown 7 points in brand consideration. We've, our cultural buzz, all these things are coming together. And so it's how an effort like Cherries Wild, with these culture bombs, with our hardworking A&M, with these other kind of moments and innovation, how it all works together to really paint a whole picture.
I want to signal to our audience that if you have questions for Todd, please let Lisa know. She'll bring the microphone over to you. We're going to go questions in a second. What have you learned about how not to do entertainment marketing?
I would say it gets to that kind of culture first versus brand first perspective. Do not make it a commercial and put your brand at the center of it at the expense of the end consumer. If you're going to go into entertainment marketing and content marketing, then be a content creator first and a brand marketer second. What a lot of people do is they say, where can I put my brand? I can put my car here. I can put my product here. I can put an advertisement here. And it's like, at the end of the day, if it's not stuff you would watch yourself at home, and it's not compelling content, it doesn't matter how great the integration or how deep your brand presence is. Start with just what's compelling to a consumer at home. What's a good way to reach them? How would I want to see this? And ideally, this is why the creation thing is so interesting to us, rather than just integrating into other existing stuff, is ideally you're building it around something that is already relevant to your brand and your target and your audience. That can be a really interesting way to unpack it. So that's what I would really say is, don't try to force it. We actually had sometimes, had to dial back the branding that people or partners would say, oh, don't you want to have somebody on the dating show take a sip of the Pepsi Mango? And we're like, no, that's actually it's a little forced and cheesy. Please don't do that. I want them to keep watching and engage with this and come back in week 2 and week 3 and things like that. So I think that's the advice.
Let's see if we have some questions from the audience out there or in here. If you have any questions from those of you who are online, just pop them into the chat box and I'll ask them for you.
Well, I actually have a quick question for Todd, but I need to
Sure.
see him for this. Where's Gumby suit? I was hoping to see that.
Oh my, that's funny. Yeah. So apparently you've seen, so we just had for Halloween, a lot of our, we all dress up at Halloween here at PepsiCo and do a bunch of fun, silly, stupid things. And yeah, there was a day, a couple of years ago, I dressed up like Gumby and went to all my meetings as Gumby. So, but yeah, not today, unfortunately. He's in the attic right now. So there you go.
Yes, wanting to see that.
Todd, you've got a room full of CPG marketers here, all of whom are hungry for market share. Pepsi has enviable market share. What do you think most CPG marketers get wrong about growing their market share?
It really is the fundamentals of, you go back to how brands grow and just the simple, basic fundamentals. You're going to grow one of two ways, penetration or frequency, right? And so you're either going to get a new consumer into your category, or you're going to steal share from your competition. So for us, we're very focused on, Pepsi, for example, it's all about switchers. We know it's a our category is highly competitive, right? And so someone who drinks 20 Pepsis a month, they're also drinking, 8 Cokes a month. And so it's easier to get them to drink 21 Pepsis and 7 Cokes rather than to get someone who's never come into the category. And that's for our strategy that we're really hunkering down, but really understanding who you're going after and what is going to be really driving that share metric, rather than just doing stuff and hoping sales follow, getting really, really focused and specific around the strategic, targets and how that's actually going to play through.
Mm-hmm. I just want to check with Lisa. If there's not another question, I have one last big question for you about the music.
We do actually have a question, Steve.
Go ahead.
Hold on. My back was turned. Test. Hold on.
Hi, Todd.
Hi.
Well, thank you so much. It's a very interesting overview in general of the Pepsi and the strategy. I wonder, when you were talking about the switchers specifically and all these cultural bombs that you guys are bringing in, I believe they're also probably targeting at acquiring maybe new shoppers and maybe new consumers, maybe switching from Coke or switching from the other brands. What is your switching strategy after you introduce this bomb and they look at it? Maybe they didn't buy it, but they kind of got triggered about, oh, there's something new and found from Pepsi. what is the next product you would expect them to switch to try, and how would you get them into the family?
Yeah, well, I think what we found, at least again for our category, right? We have what we call like frequent drinkers, which are drinking the core Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, all of that kind of stuff. And then the people who typically will drink flavors, so like cherry, like mango. There will also be the people who will drink like our LTOs at retail, so like this Pepsi Soda Shop or Pepsi Blue or these fun kind of things. And then these culture bombs are kind of like the, oh my gosh, what would it? And so there is this degree of intrigue of like, what about Pepsi with that flavor? What about what it also says? All these flavors, by the way, are also super indulgent. When I think about a marshmallow flavored Pepsi, right, for PEEPs, I mean, you can't get more indulgent than that. We had Coca-Cola, which was hot cocoa flavored Pepsi, like we've done a lot of fun things, but typically a lot of them will come in through the flavor side. That's where our light cola drinkers, people who kind of dabble in the space, literally, if they're looking to indulge in a cola, will want to make sure it's really tasty and really sweet and a little bit different. And so that's one way in, but it really depends, like I said, and that's where I think the fun of it really comes. But that's how we think about how they all play together.
Todd, you always bring us fun stuff.
Time for one more.
Entertainment marketing, and by the way, the shelves behind you are a testament to your love of entertainment.
Okay, wait. Is there another question?
One more question for you, Todd.
Okay, sure. Yeah, no worries.
Hey, Todd. Thank you again for your perspective here. From understanding kind of the importance of cultural relevance, especially for CPG brands, while we're, all trying to make a bigger splash in our specific categories. And this is not meant to be off color at all. I'm thinking back to an ad from, I think it was 2017 with Kendall Jenner and the Lives Matter movement. That's, I think, a perfect example of a way that, trying to exist in that world of cultural relevance or taking a stand and being a part of a larger conversation can sometimes go a little wrong.
100%.
And I think, we were talking a little bit about this yesterday in kind of an influencer roundtable, understanding kind of the risk that you put into joining those conversations for brands that might not have as large of a footprint or, again, as large of a market share as PepsiCo. How would you kind of recommend evaluating that risk and kind of towing the line?
Totally. I think it's a great question. And to be clear, that all happened before I came into the Pepsi role, just to clarify. But what I would say is, I think it's a great articulation of when you try to force it and you inauthentically, put your brand into a situation where it doesn't belong, what could happen from a risk strategy. So I think it comes really down to the crux of it all isn't just like, hey, listen to culture and find places to hop in and like enjoy the ride. Like, no. First and foremost, know who your brand is. What do you stand for as a brand? What is your brand point of view? What is your brand purpose? Why do you exist as a brand? If you said, what would happen if your brand didn't exist? What's the void in the world? Like, really push to really drive that brand distinction conversation to make sure you're clear on what your brand is and isn't. And then once you understand what you stand for, you'll understand what are the lanes that feel like fair game, right? And so for a fun enjoyment brand like Pepsi to get into a serious discussion, like, again, we do a lot of really great cause-driven stuff, but perfect example, this year we just launched an initiative on sustainability, which is a really, hot topic. We've done a lot of stuff as a corporation, obviously, in this space and whatnot, but rather than go in with a very, heavy, serious kind of sort of thing, we have a thing of our point of view is around Pepsi trash talk. So we have NFL athletes really talking to drive awareness around recycling education on what is and isn't recycling, which we know is one of the biggest barriers to why people don't recycle, and leveraging our scale and footprint to try and drive change in that way is one example of how you would bring a brand forward execution. And so it's just really understanding the guardrails of your brand tone, your brand voice, and just really your brand purpose of what you stand for should help guide, as I talk about that culture in versus brand out, understanding what is happening in culture, and then where and if your brand connects to it is the point. And if it doesn't connect to it, don't participate in that. So that would be my guidance.
Okay, well, I think we're good. Todd, that was awesome. You were great. And I